It is my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. And I had been asked to talk a little bit about prophecy, about Native American prophecy. There are several forms of prophecy. There are prophecy in the pre-contact time. There's prophecy that has come amongst Native American people after contact time. There is prophecy that is happening today. I was told by my teacher of many, many years, Mr. Paul Whitehead from the Kootenai or Tanaka people of Canada, that visions can come at any time, at anywhere, for anyone. How many of you used to get in trouble daydreaming in school? Still do. Daydreaming is a form of visioning, I'm told by my elders. That sometimes we see many things in the form of pictures across the sky. We should pay very serious attention to those. What does that do to a little person, to our children, when they're told, you have to focus, get back here on the blackboard. Now we're doing this mathematics over here. Get back to this mathematics. Don't be looking off out the window out there. Don't be looking at those trees or those birds dancing around there, or those hummingbirds coming to the feeder, or watching those cats play out there, or the deer running through the field. We need to focus on math. This is where your attention needs to be. Don't divert your eyes. What happens to our little people then? Where does their imagination go? Where does it go? Well,
sometimes it just disappears.
That's right. And is that a good thing for us to do? Do you think? No. How about the rest of you? Think this is a good thing to squash the imagination of our children? I don't think so either. So, our little people in ancient times, everybody lived together. We're a village. From the time that little one was born, we've watched them grow up. We've watched what they liked to do, what they were into, what they were interested in. And we just could not keep her out of that flint napping pile. She was over there in those arrows and in those flints all the time. Every time we try to take her out of there so she could go over here and learn with her aunties and her grandmas about how to bead, about how to do quill work, about how to sew, how to take care of things. Every time we turned our back, there she was back over there in the flints, digging around in those sharp rocks. And her brother, we could not get her brother to take any interest in those man's things, the flint napping, the making of arrows and bows. We just couldn't get him. He was the one that was interested in making baskets and doing beautiful quill work and beadwork and stuff. So do we stop them? As a tribe, as a community, I'm asking you, do we stop them from doing that and force her to go over here and do this work over here because that's what the girls do? And force him to go over here and do this because that's what the boys do? No, not if we want them to be well-rounded. We say, okay, Flint Napper's going to take her downriver and meet with Grandma, meet with Grandpa and the other uncles and stuff, and she's going to learn. She's going to be the best flint napper that we have and the best arrow maker that we have, and boy, is she going to be able to trade. She's really going to be able to trade. Now, that young boy, he knows all about making baskets. He knows where to go to find the bear grass. He knows where to go to find everything else for the making of those roots, or for those baskets, the roots from the trees, what we need to make baskets. Their imaginations help to guide them. In order to see an arrowhead in a piece of obsidian, do you have to have imagination? Do you have to have an artist's eye, kind of, to be able to see that, what's inside the rock? And you take away what's not supposed to be there, and there's your arrowhead? What about that young man that understands how to make those baskets and makes them so tight that they meet all of the outcomes and all of the benchmarks along the way? Observational, participatory, in watching Grandma make all of these baskets. Here, you try it. Oh, it doesn't work. Here, we'll take it apart. You try it again until you get it. The outcome is that the basket holds water. The arrow flies straight and true. The point doesn't break on impact. Those things are how we teach. They're reflective of Native teaching style. It's also very, very reflective of outcomes-based education today. Very, very similar in their concept and in their structure. Where in there is vision? Where do you find visioning? Do you have a course here at the community college? I'm pretty sure we don't have one at the university that talks about visioning, daydreaming, and making prophecy. You guys have one of those here at LCC? No. Well, our prophets are people who had wisdom. They could see. I'm told that it was because we moved at a slower pace. We weren't in such a hurry to get every place. And so we had actual time to meditate. We had time to reflect. We had time as part of our social structure as American Indian people to reflect on the spiritual, which is every day, all the days of your life. It's your natural relationship with the Creator that is every day, not just one day, but every day. In finding that kind of time, sitting and being quiet with nature, things begin to speak to you. How many of you have ever studied the workings of an anthill? You'll be really amazed if you haven't, won't they, about what goes on in that community. I was told by James' mom I was going to make a rattle, a gourd rattle. I told her I needed 100 stones from around the mouth of an anthill. She promptly told me, there's one just right out there, go get him. And so I had to go out and lay on my belly on the middle of the flats by the next to the river and pick 100 stones from around the mouth of that anthill without disturbing those ants or making them angry. That's really more difficult to do than it sounds. It took me a long time to do that. I had to make sure that I didn't upset those ants. But maybe I was going to get a vision. Maybe I was going to get a dream. They said a long time ago, there's a new people coming. There's a new people coming. And these people are going to have hair on face upside down people. These people are going to be light complected. They're going to have a different colored eyes. They're going to come amongst us with many new ideas and new ways. The fourth fire, the wampum belts of the Algonquin Nation from 1400, 1500, and 1673. The 1400 belt of the Algonquins tells us that these new people are coming in the time of the fourth fire. And we will know them by how they come to us. And we will know their intent by how it is that they come to us. If they come to us bearing weapons, then surely we will have a difficult time, for they will use the weapons against us. If they come bearing an old way of their relationship with the earth, and they come unarmed, and they come with an open heart, then one nation will join two, and two more nations will join those two to become the largest and greatest nation ever to have been. But if they come with weapons, that will not happen, and the people will then begin to separate. We will begin to have dominion over the land, dominance over the land, conquering of the land. Manifest Destiny had as part of its constructs those things about moving forward, about incorporating those things and making change. At the time of the coming of the fifth fire, there will be a great lessening of the herd animals, and the people will become hungry. The fishes will quit running in the rivers. The game will begin to disappear. The plants will begin to curl and die and not be in their usual and accustomed places. During the time of the sixth fire, there will come a great darkness, and that great darkness will engulf the world, not once, but twice. And the last time, that great darkness will be lit by a great fire in a distant land. That's interpreted to be World Wars I and II and the dropping of the bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. During the time of the seventh fire, a new people will emerge, hungry to find their way to the source of all life. They will come to the red man to seek of them what it is that they know in relationship to the earth, the stewardship, and the caretaking of the land, so that she might be saved. If peoples will come to a like mind, not based in materialistic pursuit, but in balance and harmonious relationship with everything else that lives, the eighth and final fire of peace everlasting will be lit by that final generation. They tell us that we are in the time of the seventh fire. We have a choice as human beings. We have a choice about which road it is that we're going to go on. Whether it's the one of materialism, self-centeredness, greed, more I than we, more me than they, then we're in for a very serious time. A time of purification will come. It's told that in the first purification, her wisdom of the Mother Earth, she sent water, and we were purified and cleansed by water. She sent water again in the recent floods and the hurricanes that we've had to focus people on humanity and compassion for all life affected by water. They said if that didn't work, that she would then shake her back to rid herself of the sickness that makes her ill. That can be seen as earthquakes and the threat of earthquakes. That there will come a time when there will come a mighty mountain, will throw fire high into the sky and will be seen by all, and the ash from that fire will cover all the world. Mount St. Helens. The eruption from Mount St. Helens and the ash fall literally has been found at all points of the earth. Fire mountain of the Yakima people. They said also in these prophecies that there would come a time when there would be lines across the sky and there would be silver birds flying in the sky. And they might even have some form of a light on them where they flew at night. There would be black ribbons running along the ground, and there would be small bugs running back and forth. And in these small bugs would be human beings, even some Lakota. This is the Lakota prophecy. The people of the Pacific Northwest talked about a coming of the new people. The hair on face upside down people. What's that word, James? Chapo? How do you... Yeah. Hair on face upside down people. It said that when they first saw them coming, the trappers, they had taken off their fur hats. And so they were kind of bald on top, but they had big beards. And so the people had never seen anyone with a beard. And they had never seen anybody with a receding hairline, like some of us may have these days. So the children came running into the camps, hollering, this hair on face upside down people, because their hair was upside down for them, for their viewpoint. The Hopis have many prophecies. It's been asked in the last year or so that people not relate the Hopi prophecies because one of the teachings that had been given of those Hopi prophecies was wrong, according to the elders of the tribe. Although they have sent out a message that says we are in the time of change. We are who we've been waiting for. There will come a time when a mighty river will run by. In that river, in the middle of that river, will be those that you know. When the time comes, turn loose of the shore, go to the middle of the river, hold your head up and keep your eyes open and look about you to see who shares the middle of the river with you, secure in the knowledge that the river indeed has its destination. Those that cling too long and tenaciously to the shore will suffer greatly. Now these prophecies, remember these are translated from the Native American. Native American languages have oftentimes much broader concepts contained in one word or in one sentence than in English. And in some cases it's very hard to translate concepts and ideas from native language to English. It doesn't have the full measure that the native language might have. But these things have been talked about since before the coming of the people, before they ever got here. There were prophecies amongst the people about the coming of Shunka Wakan, the Lakota people call Great Holy Dog. Have any idea what that is?
Horse.
The horse. When the time of the horse came, that changed from the time of the horse, from the time of the dog to the time of the horse. There were prophecies amongst their own people and amongst the Northern Cheyenne people. A great man named Sweet Medicine said that when this new animal comes, it will be the beginning of the end for the Northern Cheyenne people. There will only be one chance to turn everything around. And that is this time. That's why so many people are speaking out about the sacredness of Mother Earth, about finding a way to live in harmonious relationship with her above all things, with her. If we can find a way to live harmoniously with her, it will follow that we find a way to live harmoniously with each other. I had to purchase this water. How many of you buy water? How many of you buy water? You never bought a bottle of water? Buying water. How much are we made up of water? Right close to 96, 98% water. We human beings. Whoa. We have to buy our life. For if you don't drink water, you're going back to dust real soon. Real soon. I can make it probably a week on what I have reserved. Some of us have a little more reserve than others, and I'm one of those. But I'm not going to make it any longer than anybody else without water. And I had to buy water. How many of you buy smudge sticks? Sage, cedar, sweetgrass, tobacco. You buy those. Those are 4 medicines given to the people for the balancing of mental and emotional stress and distress, for physical healing, for spiritual renewal, for cleansing, for the inviting in of positive energy, for the creation of good atmosphere, for the dispelling of negative spirits, and for the direct prayer and commitment connection to the Great Spirit through that tobacco. The most powerful medium of prayer for American Indian people is tobacco. Semma, Masemma, was the name of a young man amongst my people who had a great vision. And he went to his elders and he said, I've had this vision and this is what you must do. I'm being given a gift for the people and it requires my life. You must take me to the center of the village. You must build a pole there. You must pile up wood around me and you must burn me all up. The people were horrified and said, we can't do that. You're our much loved young man. We can't do that. We won't even hear of it. And so the young man went back to his home. He began to wither and get sick. He began to lose weight. He began to just waste away before the people. He was dying. So finally they took him to the medicine people again. He told them, I'm going to die if you don't do this. They told me I can't go on living because I haven't fulfilled my gift. I have to do this or else my gift will be taken back and me with it. So very reluctantly the people agreed. He told them, after the fire is burned out, you bring water to me and you water me for 4 days, morning and evening. On the morning of the 4th day, you'll see a small plant begin to grow up out of the ground. When you come back in the evening to water me in the evening of the 4th day, you'll find a plant with long leaves, broad leaves. You take that plant, you prepare it thus and so. You put it in a pipe, a smoking thing, a pipe, and you use it this way, and it will be a direct communicator to the ear of the Great Spirit, the greatest communicator that we have ever had, tobacco. It will take your prayers on your breath. You can put it on the ground. You can put it on the water. You can throw it in the air, and the Great Spirit will hear you immediately because the Great Spirit sends this gift of communication through me. And so this is exactly what happened. Masema gave his life for the people. because of his knowledge and because of his vision. And so we use tobacco in that way today. Took me a long time to realize that. But I've been without tobacco in the contemporary way for 3 years now. I only use it in ceremonial ways or in ways for prayer. And I have a different relationship with it than I ever did in the years from the time I was 11 until I quit smoking 3 years ago. If you can put down that tobacco, now would be a good time. Because it's hurting you. There's too many additives. Go online, pop up a list of the additives in commercial cigarettes. It will blow your mind. What's in there? My niece said, "You're gray, Uncle. You look sick." That's what did it. She kept telling me over and over. Our niece, "You look gray, Uncle. You look sick. You look gray. God, you look really gray today. Oh, you look like hell today." So I decided I couldn't keep on with that. So I quit. Sweetgrass, cedar, tobacco, sage are not meant to be sold. They are meant to be gifts. They're gifts from the Mother Earth for our use in body, mind, spirit, and emotion, the balancing and the healing, not only of the physical atmosphere, but of the physical being of the individual. And we must return to that. Water is not meant to be sold. This is the lifeblood of the earth. Water, I'm told by many different tribes over my lifetime and in my experience, that this is the greatest and most powerful of all medicines, is pure, clean water. How many of you have seen the recent studies done on water and what happens to water when you put different words on a glass, on a clear glass? Isn't that a mind blower? For those of you that don't know, I can take this glass of water and I can write ugly, filth, and terrible stuff on here and face it into the water. Hate, greed, anarchy, whatever you want to put on it. Nasty stuff, war, killing, murder, mayhem, mutilation, rape, pillage, plunder, all of that stuff. You take a drop of the water, you put it on a slide, you look at it under the microscope, and it looks like sewage. It's sludgy, oily, brackish, no form to it at all. Completely no form, no substance at all. You take those words off of there and you put love, appreciation, consideration, healing, thankfulness, medicine, joy, laughter, all good things on the glass. Within 20 minutes, you take the test again and it will have returned to its crystalline form. There's tons of documentation on this. So, if you're sick, you take a glass of water, you put healing on there. You put lungs. You put gratitude on there, and you drink the water. It becomes the medicine for what it is that you need inside. You use the water. The prophecy said there would come a time when we weren't able to drink the water. How many of you right now, by a show of hands, would run right down to the Willamette River and have a great big old drink out of it? Any hands? How about right out to the lake, right out here, headed to the coast? Anybody take a big old drink of that lake? Anytime recently? Where's there any other streams around here? Rivers, anything? The McKenzie? How many of you would take a big drink out of the McKenzie? I might be a little more predisposed to taking one out of the McKenzie. Upriver. Upriver. What happens? We can't drink the water. Truck doesn't come. No boat comes up the river. No plane. No bottled water comes here. The municipal water got cut off. How do you treat water to make it palatable? How many of you know how to do that? Ooh, this scares me. That you don't even know how to purify water. The way they tell us now is you boil it for 5 minutes, let it rest for 3. Boil it again for 5, let it rest for 3, boil it another 3, let it cool, and you should be able to drink it. That's way different than it used to be when I was a Boy Scout. It was boil it for 3 minutes and let it cool and it should be all right. You got to have the steps now because the water's been so mistreated. What do we do to our water? We don't treat it very well. When's the last time that you said thanks to the water? Today? Because I said it? When was the last time before that? How many of you have been standing in your nice warm shower going, oh, God, I love hot water? Oh, huh? Uh-huh. Did you ever stop to thank the water for allowing itself to be heated up unnaturally? Does it come out of a thermal pool? No, it's heated by radiation, by electricity. We don't think about these things a whole lot. I had to buy water. $12 for a drop of water. I'm a water baby. How many of you are water babies? Every one of you is a water baby. Grandma Aggie would be all over you about being a water baby. We're all water babies. Where were you when you were being carried by that mother that we all agreed that we were born from? You were being carried in water. And what was the first transitional thing to happen to each and every one of us when we came to this world? Water broke. And then what? And most of us were doing what when we took that first breath? And crying? Huh? Crying? Oh, you guys don't know this. Oh, okay. Here's a storytelling thing that I borrowed from my brother Brent. He's a traditional storyteller, and he has a storytelling belt. And he said, as part of the structure of stories, that there's a call and response. That if I say, you say, nah, back to me. No. That lets me know that everybody's awake and paying attention. If it gets a little longer in the afternoon and people start to get kind of sleepy, long in the tooth, just a little bit, kind of a thing, and I say, and there's only one little tiny, nah, in the back of I know it's time to tie a knot in the belt, start over. No. Okay, so we'll use that a little bit. Where was I? Crying. Thank you. The Creator, when we come to this world, Creator put tears in there. That thing that we do, and we're crying and all of that stuff. Creator put those tears in there to lessen the pain of our journey into this world. Our old grandmas say that Creator, in infinite wisdom of Creator, left those tears in there to lessen the pain of this journey through life. So is it good for you to not cry? To hold back tears? No. Tears wash our spirit. They make it clean. They wash our eyes so that we can see. Do we need to have visions and prophecies for the future? Most of our prophecies end in this time, this changing time. We have 2 more years before the end of the Mayan calendar. What does this mean for us? We're told that we can barely drink the water. There are only 14 rivers in the entire world, that are still considered pure, unspoiled, untainted, unpolluted water. 14 in all the world. How many of you would take a big drink out of the Columbia? But what is that river? It's the lifeblood of the Pacific Northwest. It is the river. It is the table of the Northwest. Where is Celilo Falls? How many of you know Celilo Falls? Where is it? Underwater. Coyote was coming upriver. He was going from village to village, asking about their leadership. I don't want to get too far into this story because it's not my story. But how many of you have ever heard Slagiglala, the story of Slagiglala? She who watches. She's up there. Coyote told her, there are people coming. They won't allow any women chiefs, and they'll kill you. So I'm going to turn you to stone to watch. I'm going to turn you to a petroglyph to watch. They're going to make the falls go away. But someday that dam's going to go away. The falls are going to reappear. And when they reappear, so will you, to be the greatest chief that ever was. There are stories like that amongst the Tequilma people in the Rogue Valley. The red-tailed hawk was sent against an evil Goya who saw that he could control and manipulate the people by his powers. And the people saw that there was a time coming when the Goya was going to be all-powerful and represented the dark things. And so the people sent a great voice to the ear of the Great Spirit. The Great Spirit sent a red-tailed hawk to intermediate with the evil Goya. The evil Goya, being so full of himself, continued to do harm to the people and disregarded the red-tail's warning. And so the people again sent a voice to the Creator, and the Creator sent the red-tail back, and a terrific fight ensued. And in that terrific fight, the evil Goya was captured by the red-tail. The red-tail was victorious. And he told the evil Goya, because of your bad ways and the things that you've done, the harm that you've brought to your own people, I'm changing your wife and son and daughter to 3 pillars of stone. I'm changing you to a cedar tree, the most beautiful and most healing of our plants, of our trees. I'm changing you to that so that as the human beings come to you to gather needles off of your branches for their ceremonies and for their healing and for their doctoring, when you've given enough of yourself through those needles to make up for the evil that you did, that brought you to this place, then you too will come back to life. Your wife, your son, and your daughter will be returned to human form, and you will be the greatest medicine person who has ever lived amongst the people. That's a prophecy. We're still waiting for that time. But we just had something happen that makes us feel good about that prophecy, about that story. 2 weekends ago, my class took on a contemporary issue about reclaiming the sacred. Getting back places that we know were designated as sacred places by the indigenous people. And there's a rock on Little Table Rock as you're going up that just as you get to the top, just as you break out onto the flat up there, there was this rock. It's in the shape of a bear's head. In 2007, an overzealous Bureau of Land Management crew took the rock, moved it across the trail, turned it around, and faced it up the trail, instead of facing down the trail on the opposite side where it had sat for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. Our grandma told us last year, I want that rock moved. So we set about doing it. But I let my class discover that this rock had been moved and had not been taken care of by the Bureau of Land Management or the Nature Conservancy, either one. And so my class of students, off they went. This is part of civic engagement, service learning. You be of service to the community. You actually learn something, and you're engaged in the civic affairs of your community. So we all went there. They went up the mountain. They moved the rock back across the trail. They turned it around. It's facing back down the mountain so that at every season, human beings can go and touch the bear on the head or the nose to give thanks for the changing season, because to the Tequilma people, the grizzly bear represented the seasons and the abundance within each of those seasons, particularly in that high place. So now the rock is in its proper place. It's set where it's supposed to be. How many of you have ever met Agnes Baker Pilgrim? She was your prayer lady last year. She's our mom, and she's just she's really a great and wonderful person. But boy, she takes no prisoners. When she hollers out, James or David, you better be hustling over there, because she will get that little crooked cane and she will come after you, and she will hook you and pull you aside and tell you what it is that she needs to have done. Her prayer was that this rock could be turned around. And part of this came as something that she was told, and that she told the Dalai Lama. Aggie is the current chairwoman of the 13 Indigenous grandmothers who are traveling the world on behalf of peace and the repeal of the Papal Bull of 1491 that gave permission to the conquistadors to inhabit and conquer the unchristianized heathens in the New World. That would be us. We want that taken back. It's still in effect, which says that we would be read to in Portuguese, that we were to agree completely to dominion over us by their highnesses, who would then be able to dispose of our bodies at their will. If we didn't immediately agree to that, then we were read a document that said that we hadn't agreed, that they intended to enter our country powerfully and with all military might, and to subjugate us to the wills and whims of their majesties, if we hadn't converted. Well, there weren't too many indigenous people in North, South, or Central America who spoke Portuguese. So it wasn't very realistic that they would immediately acquiesce to somebody demanding their full and immediate surrender, because they didn't even know what it was they were asking. And so they let loose the war on them. Those things were told. They will come. They will come bringing dogs that are ravenous. They will come with a strange animal with huge feet that will stomp on us and will kill our people. They will come to us with a stick that throws a small pebble with great fire from the end of it, and this pebble will be very destructive. They will come with long, long limbs made of something very heavy and very hard and shiny, and it will slice through a human body. Swords. They will come with a skin that we cannot get through with our war clubs. Our arrows will bounce off ineffectively. Our lances will not penetrate. Armor. Those things were told that were going to happen. We were told that there would come a time when the water that fell from the sky would burn the tops of the trees. The maple trees back in the east, our sugar maples, are dying. Aspens are dying from the top down from acid rain. It's still happening from the pollution that occurs in and around the Great Lakes. All we have to do is look at our fish in the Pacific Northwest, the Klamath Lakes, the Klamath River, the Trinity River, the Columbia, the Rogue. We just tried to have, at our Native American Ecological Education Symposium last weekend, we tried to find fish from Northern California to Alaska, southeastern Alaska, where we have alumni that work for the Alaska Foundation, which is the Tlingit People's Foundation. We couldn't find any fish that they could sell to us. There were no ceremonial fish at Warm Springs for us to get. There was no fish anywhere that we could find. We refused to feed farmed salmon because we feel like when we do our salmon bakes at the university, those fish, we're helping to medicine our campus, to help people come to a deeper understanding of the relationship that we have with fish. For James and his people, the Wasco people of the river, when the fish quit running, they cease to be. They are fish. There's some real concern for the Mother Earth. American Indian people, this concept is drilled into us if we have any access to tradition at all in our growing up time, in our bringing up time. These things are given to us over and over and over and over again. That our creation stories tell us that we were given life to be stewards and caretakers of the earth, a voice for the voiceless, to stand up for those that can't stand up for themselves, to speak for them fish that are in that water, talk for this water that gets itself hurt by having to be bought. The water doesn't feel good about it. So I'm going to have to take this water home and make it feel better some kind of way, but I'm going to use this as an teaching aid. We shouldn't have to buy water. It's true, every drop is precious. And that includes the water that's in each and every one of you. We should celebrate water. We should be amongst those that say, look at what we did to the Willamette River. You can drink the Willamette River from the beginning to the end. Wouldn't that be cool? Look at how much water is going by here every day. Water. If you can't drink the water, what's going to happen to us? It's the time of the seventh fire. We are who we've been waiting for. It's a time to be active, but it's a time to be active with knowledge, to arm ourselves with the facts, to utilize science and oral tradition in a way that combines the two to their best usage, so that oral tradition isn't denied because it's not academic. Science can often prove the truth and the worth of our oral traditions. It's said that there are 4 races of human beings would bring gifts to the world. The black people would bring water and an understanding of the sacredness of water. The yellow people would bring an understanding of the balance, yin and yang, needed in the world. That the white people would bring innovation and invention needed for the future and for all life. The red people would bring an understanding of interconnectedness and interrelatedness. And with all of those gifts in place, we would do very well. There's those 4 nations making one. Those 4 races making one. We have a ways to go to do that. Because I have yet to hear the black voice about the sacredness of water. I begin to hear the yellow voice about the sacredness of balance, harmonious relationship, yin and yang, balance. I see everywhere all around me, and I hear every day innovation and invention. I only recently have begun to hear about interconnectedness and interrelatedness of all things. Our voice has to grow. We have to research it. We have to find out the things that arm us with our tools. As American Indian people, you guys talking about fighting, about warriors. And if you're taking up the battle and you're protesting and you're carrying your signs and you're out in front there and the police are coming after you and you got water hoses turned on you and you're getting knocked in the head, you're still fighting. You're still at war. The very thing that you're talking against, you're doing. What kind of confusion does that create in you? You're still at war. How can we do this in a peaceful way? As American Indians, we've discovered something, that compromise and negotiation are rooted in our trading skills. Rooted in our trading skills. We've tried confrontation for 500 years. Didn't work so well. Lots of us died. But we're still here. And in learning something of that, it works much better for us to sit and talk about the peaceful interchange and exchange of people sitting by the fire next to the river, listening to the sound of that water as it ministers to us, listening to the sound of the wind as it blows away residues of old things, feeling the earth come right up through the bottom of your feet, particularly for you women. She's female. She's powerful, and she speaks to you to the bottom of your feet. Because you touch her, you walk on her, you're connected to her. Lots of ways. Our Indian people have a lot to teach. We haven't really been allowed to have much of a voice or to teach much. Our ceremonies were outlawed until just a few years ago. It was illegal for us to dance and to sing, to have our ceremonies, our sacred ceremonies. Because when people came seeking their religious freedom, we lost ours. The only people in this country denied our religious freedom and our expression of religious freedom are the indigenous people who've been here the longest. Can anybody explain to me how that works? How that law is right? How those ways were right? The enforced sterilization of our people, the taking of our children into boarding schools, these things were all foretold in prophecy. They will come and take your children. You will begin to live in square, gray, cold houses, and beside those square, gray, cold houses, you will starve. They will come to you with a new way that makes many promises, but which hold nothing. Do not listen to them, for what they bring to you is false. Those that will come later will be true. We've been told since people came here that our traditional ways were no good. That dreaming was no good. That medicine person was no good. That Sundance was no good. That Madewoman Lodge was no good. That those were devil worshiping, rock worshiping. I particularly like rocks. I don't worship them, but I darn sure recognize their spirituality, their spiritual essence. There's a life in every stone. There's a spirit in there. They're the firstborn of Mother Earth. They're the first children. You should respect them way deeply. Without the stones, we got nothing to walk on. Got no place for our bones to go. Without the infrastructure of the stones on the earth. And the green relations that gave themselves to make the soil, to make the things that grow. How many of you take anything into your body to nourish you that doesn't come from the earth? Right? You do? What is it? There isn't anything that you take into your body to nourish you that doesn't come from the earth. Even plastic comes from the earth. I don't think it was meant in its natural form to last 20,000 years. Those water bottles, 20,000 years in a landfill before they even begin to break down. They will, however, leach carcinogens right out of the bottle as you drink them. If you got the little diamond with the number 7 in it, don't drink out of that plastic. Get rid of it. Because it's leaching chemicals into your body every time you drink it. That particular plastic combination, that formula, if it's got a little triangle on the bottom of the bottle and it's got a number 7 in it, don't use it, please. For your health and the health of your children. It somehow has effects on reproduction. It also has large amounts to do with cancer. Some believe it's a response of the water to being sold. Water has its own way. How many of you are able to jump out and stop a flooding river in the middle of its flood? Say, stop. You can jump out there and stop it? Man, there's a whole bunch of people want to be talking to you, dude. If you're able to do that. Are your initials JC? I never met anybody that could stop a flood just by holding their hand up. We need to talk, dude. That's pretty cool. And not many of us really can do that. Because that earth, she's powerful. Huh? Huh? Oh. Oh, God, time to tie a knot in the belt. There ain't nobody answering. Time to go. See? Everybody wiggle your arms like that. Okay, everybody stand up right quick. Okay, everybody take a really deep breath. Ready? Ready? Way up, stretch a little bit. Oh, and down, let it flow right out your fingertips, right out your toes. Wiggle that booty around just a little bit. All right, have a seat. Doesn't that feel better? When I'm emceeing at powwows, I always have to ask people to get up and come and dance at least once. Because now, everybody's been here most of the day, huh? Yeah. You've been at workshop after workshop from early this morning. Yes? You know, you sit in these chairs long enough, your butt begins to make a conformity to these chairs. So if you're on the flat bench at the powwow, the ball game, or anything, you sit there too long, pretty soon you're going to have bench butt. And it takes quite a while for it to get rounded back out again. So don't sit there too long. Get up, move around, shake that booty out. Get it rounded back out a little bit. I wanted to ask if there's any questions at this point. I know I've given you a lot of stuff in a real short period of time. Any questions or comments? And is it okay if I sit down? Be able to see me? Okay. Any questions? Yes.
What's your practice? What do you think's going to happen?
I'm born at 8:15 a.m. in the morning on the 21st of June. I was born in the middle of a thunder and lightning storm, and I was a breech baby at 4 pounds, 2 ounces. I didn't want to leave the water world, but according to my tribe, I'm kind of what the Lakotas call a heoka kind of guy. And sometimes I do things a little backwards, and that's okay. That's just how it is. For me, personally, I think that human beings are innately intelligent. That if we remember that place that I spoke about this morning, where ancient memory resides, if we remember where that place is at, and we begin through vibrational ways, by meditation, by whatever form, by the sound of drumming. The drum is an amazing instrument. The sound of singing. We will begin to remember very, very ancient and old kinds of things. There's a wisdom in there. Everybody sitting in this room, everybody sitting in this room, no matter what people it is that you come from, in the history of the earth herself, in the history of the world, everybody in this room comes from tribal people. All of you originate in tribal people. Each of you originate from people who had an intimate and loving relationship with the earth. Each of you comes from peoples who had midwives, who had plant doctors, who had women who were pharmacologists, who had men who were the practitioners who created and performed the rituals. Each of you comes from people who had leaders, who had government, who had law, who had social structure, clan structure, who had moral values and teachings about relationship. And somebody came along and told us that we could sell or buy those relationships, kind of like those carbon things he was talking about earlier. And we began to lose our sense of touch. Our Indian sociologists say that as a race of people, we were essentially a finished societies. Sociologists, now, talking about academic scholars, tell us that we were essentially finished societies. And that's reflected in the fact that we didn't have mental institutions, we didn't have prisons. We had fully functioning welfare systems, including the elderly, the disabled, and those less fortunate, that everybody got something to survive. We had really very serious laws about domestic violence, child abuse, sexual assault. Those things were pretty much entirely unheard of until contact time for a period of time because law had been enacted. I was at a gathering in Alaska, a social services gathering in Alaska, the village of Fort Yukon. There were 3 social scientists, social service workers from the state of Alaska, and their offices were in Anchorage. All 3 of them, it was the first time they had ever been to a native village. Fort Yukon is 68 air miles above the Arctic Circle, and it is, from the old stories, the original Fort Yukon of the Yukon territories in the days of the Hudson Bay. I've been inside the old fort. It's quite the place. But we're sitting in this room about this size, and we're all talking about social work, Indian Child Welfare Act, alcoholism, drug abuse, domestic violence, all those things that reflect social discord, discontent. This lady from the social services people, she gets up and she says, "How is it that you Indian people condone domestic violence, the beating of your wives, sexual assault on your children, sexual abuse of your spouses and your children?" And we were completely taken back by that. The old chief stood up and he said, "I'd like a chance to answer that." And so he was granted the opportunity to answer. His name was David Salmon. His Indian name translated to mean King Salmon. And he was from the village of Chalkitsik, Alaska. There's an island there that's surrounded by fog that's in their territory. The fog never goes away from that island, ever. And the people don't go there because it's Hutlani. Hutlani means it's taboo. You do not go there. And the reason that nobody goes there, and because it was David's family who were charged as the caretakers of that place, and that his last name is Salmon, that he was chosen to be that, because that island to those people is the birthplace of King Salmon. King Salmon was created there and then populated the Yukon River and all of the tributaries and all of the waters everywhere. That's their story. That's their belief. That's the place where King Salmon originated. He was the chief of the elders for the Athabascan Nation. The Athabascan Nation is huge. They're the largest landholding Indian tribe in the United States. David said, I want to answer that question. He said, if those things are in our people at this time, it's because of your laws, not ours. We had our laws, and you told us that our laws were no good, that our laws were too strict, that our laws were inefficient. But he said our laws were very effective, very efficient. If you created a situation in the tribe of your village that endangered the survivability of the people by your actions, your first warning was given to you by the headman of that village, and you might be exiled, banished for up to 3 months, 6 months. Alaska is a very difficult place to live alone. A very difficult place to live alone. She's boss there, and she will take you out in a heartbeat. He said if the person lived through that time of banishment, do you all know what banishment is? Banishment means that you have to leave the people and nobody sees you. It's like you're dead. You'll be standing right there, and even your mother, your father won't speak to you. You're banished from the people. Now, for a social and gregarious tribal people, what's the worst thing you could do to them, nearly? Is to isolate them like that. So if they happened to survive and they made their way back to the people, they might work their way back in to the community and to their family. If they should make that same kind of mistake a second time, that could result in the survivability of the people being at risk, they were then admonished by the grandmothers, and they could be sent away for up to a year. If they survived for that year and they came back and they did something for a third time, the third strike, and you were out of there, the warriors would take you, the men would take you, and you would leave camp on a hunting or fishing trip, and there was an accident, and you never returned. I heard exactly the same story from Chief Black Hawk Minthorn of the Cayuse Umatilla years earlier, when he said very nearly exactly the same thing. First by the headmen, second by the grandmothers. If you did it a third time, the warriors that were on duty as the policing society for the tribe would go and take that person, drag them out of their home, drag them through the village and into the warrior's lodge where their brains would be knocked out. Problem solved. Very little record of those kinds of situations and circumstances in the 100 years preceding social services and child welfare workers. So the insult was very pointed. Of course, we don't allow that. We do not condone that. These are our children. But when alcohol came to the Alaska people, and they said it would come in a black burning drink that will make you see visions. At first it was thought to be sacred because it gave you visions. And then they realized that they were twisted visions. But when it came to most tribes, and some Alaska tribes have only had contact 70 to 80 years ago, real, true contact, about 70 to 80 years ago. And when alcohol came to them, it came with trappers, the same as it did here. the same as it did in the Rogue Valley in the 1820s. Rum came, and with it came the traders. First, before you trade, you drink the rum, and you drink it all until it's gone. There was no such thing as a concept of social drink or drinking. It was to drink all you can drink as fast as you can drink it until it's all gone, and if your cousin passes out, drink his too. That's the concept. That's beginning to change. There came a prophecy. Amongst the Lakota people, that there would be a young woman would come, a little girl would come. She came to the village of Alkali Lake, Canada. Her parents' names are Phyllis and Andy Chelsea. Her name is, I believe it's Gretchen Chelsea. She told her mom, I'm not going home. You guys drink too much. Dad's supposed to be our chief. You guys drink all the time. I'm not going to live there anymore. And so she didn't go home. This hurt her mom and upset her mom so bad that she went home. She poured her wine down the sink. She went and got her daughter, told her there'll be no drinking in my house ever again. That includes your dad. Andy said that a week and a half after this happened, he was walking down the road in his village. They called it Alcohol Lake. Not Alkali Lake. Alcohol Lake. They had a 100% alcoholism rate, even down to the babies being fed booze in baby bottles. He quit drinking that day. He and his wife held out their sobriety for almost 2 years before the fourth person in their village became sober. That person was one of the newly emerging spiritual leaders for their tribe. And so they went to see an old grandpa. And he told them, you have to return to the sweat lodge. The sweat lodge will guide your way. And so they all started going to the sweat lodge, along with AA. There was one AA man that came from Williams Lake, which is right close to Alkali Lake. And he would come and support them in their AA meetings. They went down to North Dakota. They went amongst the Lakota people. The Lakota people told them, you have answered the prophecy. You are the prophecy. This young girl is the prophecy. That there would come a young woman who would refuse to go back into the face of this powerful enemy, alcohol. That it would be the time of the awakening of the sleeping white giant. The sleeping white giant was seen to be the people. And that when the people awakened from their long sleep of not seeing what was happening to them and their children, their families, and their communities, they would begin to take action. And there would come a great healing, and the great healing would begin to take the form of a great white bear. And that one day, that great white bear would make its way from Alaska to the Pacific coast, where it would rest and gather itself and move back across the land from the east to the west to heal the sickness that was seen to come from the east to the west. And it would be the Indian people's defeat of their greatest enemy that ever came amongst them by the use of their spirituality and by the power of prayer and their connection to each other that helped them defeat that enemy, alcohol, that was being misused and abused. Where it was misused and abused, it would be defeated. And the whole world would then see the truth of the spirituality of the American Indian people and the truth of their path that they had to take. That sobriety movement now been in effect almost 15 years. Over 1,500 people have taken part in what are called stake down ceremonies, representing many, many tribes across North America, South America, Camino del Sol, the Way of the Sun, the meeting of the Indian people of Peru and the Tlingit people of southeastern Alaska, another prophecy come true. The Inca people said that there would come a great thunderbird, a great eagle, would come flying out of the sky through a tremendous thunderstorm. And that when it landed, that eagle would sing a song and dance a dance. And the people would know that eagle by these signs. And that would be the time that the people were to come together to heal the earth. And that then the people of Peru must take their ways and go north to the place that those who came had originated from. So, about 8 years ago, there was a Tlingit Indian woman of the Eagle clan, went to Peru. She flew into a mountaintop village in the middle of a thunderstorm. When she got to the community hall, as is part of her people's tradition, she got out her button blanket to dance and sing them a greeting song from her clan and from her people. The whole button blanket is the crest of the Eagle clan symbol on the back of her blanket. And so she danced her dance to a recorded song of the Eagle song, Eagle Dance. And so she danced her dance. She said when she finished that people were all just running to one corner of the room. There was all of this excited chatter going on and stuff, and she thought she'd done something wrong, that she was in trouble, because they were all grouped around these elders back in the quarter. Wasn't the case. A spokesperson came forward and said, "You've just fulfilled our most ancient prophecy by dancing that dance." And we see that eagle dance and sing that song right in front of us. We must come to your country. We are Camino del Sol. I hear that that's happening again, that they are making their way from Peru and from Colombia northward, once again bringing their water drum to meet with the Indian people as they come north to connect us. Because where was the first place that the tragedies in North, South, and Central America occurred? It's on the mountain Cerro Rico in Peru. That was the first place that 18,000 American Indians died in gold and silver mines at the direction of the conquistadors. That was the first place. That's where all the gold and silver came from that got the attention of England and France, that created the mercenaries called pirates, that began the depredations on the Spanish gold galleons. It was told in prophecy, they will come and look for a shiny metal, a shiny rock that we cannot use for tools, and therefore we have no use for it. They will come seeking for it, and they will kill us to have it. They will take our most sacred, they will take our children, and they will kill our old people to have it. Gold. Indian people didn't use gold because it wouldn't hold a shape, wouldn't hold an edge, couldn't make an arrowhead out of it. It was way too soft. So they just left it on the ground. Those in the South made pretty things to look at because it wouldn't do anything else. So they made goblets out of it, or a nice staff, or somebody's hat. And it looked really good. But we paid a big price for that gold. All kinds of prophecies, all amongst the tribes. Way over 700 tribes, way over 1,000 languages at the time of contact, beginning to come out more and more and more all the time. So much wisdom. How much wisdom was lost in this intervening 500 years? Most of our main people were killed off. Way more by disease than all the wars put together. How many of you have ever been to the Smithsonian, the National Museum of the American Indian? As you come out of the last exhibit, and there's the big map there that shows all the languages, did they have the little placard there that says, if you are reading this and you're of Native American descent, you are a descendant of the one out of 100 American Indians who survived the first 100 years of contact? Stop and think about that. You are a descendant of the one out of 100 who survived the first 100 years of contact. That's a huge decimation of people. That's a huge number of Indian people laying dead upon the Mother Earth in North America. Entire tribes and bands wiped out by the introduction of disease. And where did that disease come from? Europe. Why? And from where in Europe? Overpopulation in cities. Part of what our sociologists, our Indian sociologists, tell us is that American Indian people had tried the big city states vis-a-vis the Anasazi, the Cahokia people of the Mississippi Delta. Huge, huge city states. Depleted way too many resources, way too fast. And so people starved to death, wars broke out, fighting broke out, and the people dissipated and disbanded and moved on to other locations. It didn't work. So what came from Europe and from where? Those great big cities that took people away from the land, disconnected their connection to the land, to the earth, to the medicines, to the ways of doing things, to rites and rituals, to that. Unfortunately, the church came in and built churches over the top of where pagan rituals had been held, so as to squash them out. They were outlawed. They were taken away. And so we disconnected from the earth. We disconnected from the other things that we're living with. This was told, also in prophecy, that it would happen. But that there would come a time when we began to talk with each other and began to realize that there was a different way that we could go. And that those voices would be raised in many forms, in many ways. And they would be all colors of the two-leggeds of human beings who would raise the voice to say, this is wrong and must stop. All those of a like mind and of a like heart. So as I look around this room, and I've been a classroom teacher for 27 years, I notice that I haven't lost anybody's attention in this period of time, which tells me that everybody in this room is of a like mind and of a like heart. How many of you want to know what to do? How do we do this? You do this by every day making recognition to the water. You do this by every day being aware of what's going on in your community. What laws are being made? Who's acting on your behalf? How many of you voted this last election that never voted before? Very telling. And what happened? We had the largest turnout ever. Because everybody was pissed. They wanted a change. They wanted something different. So they're exercising their right to vote. My people paid in blood, in lives, for the right to vote. I'll ask this question. How many of you know when American Indians got the right to vote? If you were in my recent workshop, James's class, don't answer. Don't go there. I see you guys. I see you guys. How about the rest of you? When did women get the right to vote?
Well, 24 officially, but not they actually vote.
What year?
1924 to 1926.
1924 to 1926. Started in 1924. American Indians got the right to vote in 1928. We weren't considered citizens until 1928. 1928. What had happened between 1890 and 1928? The Spanish-American War, World War I, World War II, and not too far from Korea. American Indians served in the Spanish-American War for the United States. 10 years after Wounded Knee. been at it a really long time, serving for our country. Those periods of time, that period of time there, you go to war, you go to fight for your country, even in segregated units, because we weren't just quite good enough to be with everybody else. So we were made into segregated units and made into, of all things, cavalry. And who was conscripted in great numbers to be in the Wild West shows and in the first light cavalries? High Plains people, horsemen. Large numbers of Lakota went with the Wild West shows, Buffalo Bill, all over Europe at way, way reduced wages. All over. They said they would travel on big boats that belched fire, and they would be scared. They would be in the holes, in the bottoms of these big boats, and they would not be able to see the daylight for many days at a time, and many would be sick. But the lands that they would go to would be filled with many wonders and more white people than they could ever imagine. Think of the impact when they got back home. What use do we have in resisting? There's too many. There's too many. But during that period of time, you could go and you could fight and you could die in service to your country. But you couldn't vote. You couldn't go in a bar and have a drink. No dogs or Indians allowed. Thank you, gentlemen. Those things were all told. Prophecy on prophecy on prophecy. Things that have been passed down. You can read about some of them. Some of them you just have to go and hang with the Indians 101. Because that's how you're really going to get to know us. Yes, Celia.
Can you say a little bit more about water and black people as far as the prophecy is concerned?
As the prophecy says, that the black people who come from some of the driest regions in the world will bring an understanding about the sacredness of water, how holy and sacred water is, and how for a people that it's difficult to get, they have a deeper feeling for it. And I often think about how many of you ever saw there were two films, The Gods Must Be Crazy? And you see the man take his little stick and he's drinking water out of the sand. And it looks like every place else. But he knew where that water was at. And so he had his own way of getting that water. Elephants, they have their own way of getting water. Water buffalo know how to wallow and bring water up. So a hunting, a gathering, a moving people would, like American Indians, observe nature. And they would have watched how these animals located water in one of the driest regions in the world. That water, especially cool, clear water, what a treat. How many of you ever been out in the desert, thirsting for water, starving for water, as my old people say? And you get that first little sip of water, what does it? What's that? What? 5 minutes? Oh, I didn't know we were on a time in here. Okay, thanks. So I'm going to stop right here. Other than that, I truly believe that black people have, it's in your ancient memory. It's somewhere back there. It has to be, you might have to research it back there. You might have to actually make some connections back there. And ooh, what you might find. On your journey back there to what you might find back there, don't forget that probably somewhere between 89 and 92% of African Americans living in the United States today have some degree or amount of American Indian blood. 92%. So if you've never heard of the Cherokee or the Choctaw or the Chickasaw, freedmen's, Seminoles, freedmen's societies, you should check them out. You could have some relatives living there. They're huge organizations and groups. The Indian people were at the southern terminus for leaving The Narragansett and the Passamaquoddy people were on the northern terminus for arriving for the Underground Railroad. Guess who the guides were? Particularly in the south, to get to the railroad, to get out of there. The Indians. The Narragansett and the Passamaquoddy received them on the upper end and said, come. That's why today when you go amongst the Narragansett and the Passamaquoddy, many, many, many of them have black features. But they're Indians, and they're black at the same time. So, allies? Yeah. I would like to be able, how many of you count yourself as an ally to working on the betterment and the caretaking of the earth? Good. Keep it up. I want to thank you very much for your time today. I want to ask if there's anything, last question or anything? Any statements anybody has? Well, then I'll ask you to please have a big drink of free water tonight somewhere. Thank you all very much.